Sarah anxiously pushed open the door, shouting her daughter's name as loudly as she could.
Matilda! Where's your sister? Where is your sister? Hurting me.
In this dystopian future, a mysterious catastrophe had struck humanity. Suddenly, no one could fall asleep. At first, Sarah had no idea what was happening, because her daughter could still sleep like normal. She mentioned this to one of her co-workers, who immediately became intrigued and asked where her daughter was. There was, in fact, one other person who could still sleep, a senior citizen, but he had already been locked away in a research facility. Desperate to understand the cause of the sleeplessness, scientists had run countless experiments on him. Hearing her co-worker's reaction, Sarah quickly lied and said she couldn't remember where her daughter was, then jumped on her bike and pedaled furiously back home. What followed was the scene we saw at the beginning. Her son told her that Matilda and their grandma had just left for church. As Sarah and Jack prepared to rush there, her co-worker suddenly showed up again. He tried to convince her to take Matilda to the research facility. He believed that only through studying her could they find a cure, and that would be the only hope for humanity. But Sarah didn't wait to listen. She grabbed her bag and rushed out the door. By now, it was the third day of human insomnia. People everywhere were starting to hallucinate. The streets grew increasingly chaotic. When Sarah reached the church, she realized the people there had no intention of letting Matilda leave. Her co-worker tried to explain the situation, but one of the armed guards behind him was already hallucinating. He suddenly lashed out and killed him on the spot. Sarah seized the moment, grabbed Matilda, and escaped. Jack later tried to convince Sarah again. If they took Matilda to the facility and helped develop a cure, they might be able to save everyone. This time, Sarah hesitated. Eventually, she agreed, and they set out for the lab. But when they arrived, she was surprised to see that the soldiers stationed there still seemed normal. Worried about Matilda's safety, Sarah went in alone. She disguised herself as a doctor and asked a nurse where the sleeping old man was being kept. The nurse's hand trembled as she held the medication. Her face was pale and weak, a clear sign that a cure still hadn't been found. Sarah found the old man, but he was barely alive, visibly tortured by the experiments. He told her that the people inside had been using banned stimulants just to stay awake a little longer. Coming to this place was a death sentence. Just then, outside, chaos had erupted. Even the soldiers were starting to hallucinate. One mistook a pine cone for a grenade and opened fire. Gunshots rang out as soldiers turned on each other. Meanwhile, Jack had also lost touch with reality. He jabbed a pair of tweezers into a power outlet. Matilda hurried to grab a defibrillator and helped Sarah try to revive him. But due to a mistake during the process, Jack flatlined. The next day, Sarah still hadn't slept. She sat holding Jack's body until Matilda suddenly realized something. Jack wasn't dead, he was asleep. That's when Matilda remembered. When the disaster began, she had fallen into a river and nearly drowned. She was rescued just before dying, and after that, she could sleep. Last night, Jack had technically died too. Matilda quickly shared her idea with Jack. At first, he resisted, but eventually, he agreed. They decided to take a risk. Together, they slowly dragged Sarah down to the river. Then, with heavy hearts, they pushed her under. When she lost consciousness, the siblings pulled her out and immediately began resuscitation.